Good early evening as it is here in the UK. Strap yourselves in. Get a glass of some beverage you feel comfortable with. Homebrew wine. Made by my rather excellent partner, who's very camera shy, but I might persuade her to say hello. No. First of all, I am just continually find myself, this year especially, baffled at certain aspects of human behaviour. Much in the same way that Data, the character from Star Trek, does. This is going to be a long one. I have been known to say that to all the girls. See, I'm a bit further forward than Data. I do actually understand humour, vaguely, in a dad joke, bad pun kind of way. There was the first tangent. I'm as bad as Mr. Simon Whistler. Love you, Simon. Not in a sexual way. I'm straight. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, those who identify as something different, be prepared for my video on my absolute bafflement at recent events in my life. Those of you who've been following the channel for a while may realise that I've been having a bit of a tough time lately. I'm working my way through it, involving conflicts of interest in social groups, is the best way to put it. Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. My genuine bafflement, I'll go into more specific detail later, is, I understand there's a lot of people out there who are unwilling to admit to the fact that they think they may have made a mistake. That's very common human nature. We see it in world leaders, we see it in everyday folk, we see it in people at work. Not that I've worked full time for a very long time. For exactly the same reason, my genuine inability to understand some aspects of human behaviour. I should paint my skin white and do it and give myself gold contact lenses, shouldn't I? So yeah, most people are unwilling to admit to the fact that they may have made a mistake. But to then go a stage further of not letting parties who may have an interest in the situation or who are directly involved, not to let them know what's going on, that's a whole other level that I do not understand at all. I have some opinions on why, but they are just opinions and conjecture. Basically, I walked past a pub that I've recently been told I'm banned from over a petty online argument, basically, that ended up with construed threats. Keyboard warrior-ism, if you like. We've all been there. I can be just as guilty as other people, only I then genuinely back it up with well, we'll sort it out, come over. I don't beat around the bush with things like that. And a young lad who's basically door security there. He waved at me from across the room. Oh, Howard. And I was like, hmm? So I strolled over. He's like, oh, ain't seen you lately. I just looked at him. I went, well, I'm banned. He went, what? So the people that banned me, who work behind the bar, hadn't told their own door security that I was banned. I need another drink now. Because apparently the owner, not the people who've banned me, who are merely head bar staff, I presume, because I shouted to the owner across the street last night. Because I have a tankard that was passed down from my father in there, and I wanted it back because I don't know when I'm going to be allowed back in, obviously. And apparently, Frank walked into the pub after I shouted at him, shouted across the road, can I have my tankard back, please, Frank? And he said to this young lad, who's also part of the Viking reenactment group I was part of, don't know really. It's all very confusing. It's a bit like, I don't know, a Quentin Tarantino movie, because the plot lines are often very confusing with them, aren't they? Or something like that. But basically any movie where the plot is very confusing. There are many of them. And so basically I was like, what? So Frank, let me get these stories straight, goes back into the pub and he announces to this young lad that I'm here. To which the young lad was like, is he coming in? I went, oh no, he's just here to pick up his tankard. What? Oh. And he's like, and Frank says, sorry, I didn't mean to name names, but I've done it now. And the owner just basically doesn't tell him anything. You'd think the owner, at least, would tell him that this person is banned from my pub. I'm really not getting my head around this. By the way, for those who are new, I'm not banned for any physical aggressive behaviour. I was banned because of an online spat where I was construed to be threatening, which is a point of conjecture and open to interpretation. Basically, I used the phrase F off and die, which as far as I'm concerned, basically means I hope karma just gets you out of the way without any intervention on my behalf, as far as I'm concerned. This was taken as a threat to a member of the opposite sex, whose husband then decided to issue what I thought was interpreted as a veiled threat to me. So I took the veil off and directly said, look, at the end of the day, we're in a Viking reenactment group, because this is the origin of the row. It's a political shitstorm stroke power struggle within the reenactment group I was part of. So I basically said, well, look, David, we're part of a Viking reenactment group. Next training, let's sort this out with a duel. To whoever gives up first, under controlled circumstances. And he took that as a threat. So therefore, they both went running to the owners of the local pub and claimed that I'd threatened members of the staff. You know, these two. So they used a totally unrelated situation in a personal beef to engineer me being banned from somewhere where, apart from when a couple of people have pushed my buttons intentionally, I've never been aggressive to anyone who didn't deserve a good talking to, as far as I'm aware. Certainly I've never been told I may be banned before. Yes, this is very confusing, isn't it? And he was genuinely like, what, you're banned? The young man who's security, who you'd think would have been told that I was banned. Well, I may as well have just walked in there and had a pint, you know. And then he said, why haven't you been to training with the reenactment group? Because he's a member. He hadn't been toning up lately, but he started going again. And I find this even more confusing because the leader of the group had told me that he wasn't sure about him. Okay. Very confusing signals. He'd said, last training, where have you been? No one said anything. I said, well, basically, I've been removed from the group by this woman who thinks she controls it. I mean, technically, I think to a certain extent, I've removed myself because of this shitstorm, because I don't want to be dealing with this, to be honest, childish behaviour. He had no idea. No one had told him. Apparently the leader of the group was sitting in a corner playing with his laptop while his partner, who was an old friend of mine, I don't know if she still is because of this row, basically just sat there with him. He paid no attention to the 3 other people that had turned up, who just basically trained amongst themselves insofar as they know how to. Because I was head trainer. Because I've got over 10 years of experience on and off in the field of Saxon stroke Viking reenactment. I don't claim to be an expert. We are all always learning. But I know enough about group dynamics, training with various weapons, and the history and mythology to be very valuable to a group. But anyway, that's a bit of a tangent. And he was genuinely hadn't been told a thing here either. And this is what I do not understand. Like I stated earlier, I understand people are unwilling to own up to the fact that they may have made a mistake. That's human nature. But to then not even inform interested parties, I can't get my head around this. What is going on is a whole other level that I just do not understand. Wow. I can speculate, but I think I will. Strap yourself in. I think, it took me a long time to realise this, but I can be genuinely intimidating to a lot of people. Yeah, I am tensing my wrist muscles there. That's regularly working out with axes and swords and not the other thing that's the standard joke. And a certain amount of misunderstanding as well, because I'm high functioning autistic, ADHD. I'm going through the diagnosis process, but my long suffering partner has been a psychiatric nurse for how long, my dear?
12 years.
12 years. And she's pretty sure I have those 2 things along with maybe a few other things mixed in. Mm-hmm. She's nodding and smiling. Well, I think she's smiling. Are you smiling? Yeah. Yes, she is. So I can be very full on, very over enthusiastic, and generally very big personality, big appetites, big anger, unfortunately. Yes, I have anger management issues. I'm not actually that big built, but I'm in good shape and my strength can genuinely surprise people. Tangent time. Back at school, I was a lot skinnier than I am now, obviously. I was a geek. I didn't play sports. I did, especially not group sports. Never really fitted in, you know. Well, so that's the background I come from. Where was I? I was genuinely asking you, darling.
Oh, sorry.
I've kind of lost the thread a bit.
You were talking about how you would come across as intimidating.
Yeah, I mean, a good friend of mine who I haven't seen for a while, but she's still online a lot, just turned around to me about 2 years ago and said, "Do you realise how intimidating you are, Howard?" And I was like, "What? Me? Yes. Especially when you get angry. Because the last time I even got vaguely physically aggressive with someone was round about 3 years ago. And even then it was to ward them off. Oh no, there was an incident about a year and a half ago, wasn't there, darling? Mm. With someone who was just looking to push my buttons. An idiot who was just looking for someone to have a fight with and suddenly realised he'd picked on the wrong person in the wrong pub. Thank you very much, my supporters in St Dewsbury Tavern. That night was very much appreciated. Hi, Paula Longstaff. Thank you for your assistance and everybody else that helped out with that. Paula Longstaff runs a very nice pop-up shop in the Car Street pop-up shops, actually. Bewitched Jewellery, I think I've got that right. Sorry, Paula. I think that's what it is, isn't it? And she's a lovely lady. Yeah. Whoa, tangent. Right. But the reason this row flared up over someone who seemed to be rather jealous and intimidated by me. There are some people who just compulsively have to be in control of every social group and situation they find themselves in. Now, I'm not one of these people. I'd like to think I'm fairly easygoing. Hello?
Variable depending on the situation.
Variable depending on the situation. And that comes from a qualified psychiatric nurse. She knows what she's talking about, she does. Although sometimes she doubts herself. Love you. So, how are we doing, folks? I need another top up. I don't know about you. Right. And I'll be honest, this would be the fourth time, at least, this situation has happened to me this year. Earlier on this year, my younger brother basically accused me of stealing from my widowed mother. Regular followers of the channel should know about this. If you're a first time viewer, then hi, welcome to my sometimes shitty but definitely interesting life. What had happened was that I resisted the urge to go into talking like a particularly dreadful British comedian that many middle-aged men, including my late father, liked. You know the one I mean, don't you, darling? Jethro. Cornish comedian. who would not have any fans these days if he was starting out. I kind of was a little bit fond of him myself because I've got a sometimes appalling sense of humour. Which can sometimes backfire on me majorly. Don't go into a tangent. Right. I need reminding of where the hell I was again.
I don't know, you've lost me.
I've lost Michelle now. Oh, I hope that never happens. I would be nothing without her. I mean that genuinely. So, I am, and I will reiterate this, genuinely confused by this behaviour. I was speculating on the reasons, wasn't I? Yes, I've come round about to where I should have been. Oh, that was a massive tangent, wasn't it? I feel the urge to go off on another one, actually. I'm sure you don't mind. Right, Star Trek. Data. See, there's the connection. I am a huge fan of Next Generation. I'm a huge fan of Deep Space Nine. Voyager I'm okay with. Enterprise was... Voyager was better and then got worse. I'm also a fan of the wonderful series Babylon 5. I'm a fan of all the older Star Wars and a select few of the newest Star Wars. The Mandalorian especially. Most of the prequel movies suck ass, in my humble opinion. I shouldn't really use the word humble, should I? No. In my opinion. There, I said it. Yeah, I'm going on off on a massive sci-fi rant. The Expanse, by the way, is my favourite recent science fiction series. I understand that it diverged from the books quite a lot. The books are better, says Michelle. I've never read them. So therefore I am ignorant to how different it is. It's the same with The Witcher, by the way, isn't it, darling? Mm-hmm. My partner has read the Witcher books. I have not. I just base my opinions on brief dalliances with the games and the series. But I've stopped watching that now because without Henry Cavill, it is nothing. I'm really looking forward to his Warhammer 40k series that's coming. And while we're at it, as far as I'm concerned, the Rings of Power series was a big pile of shit. In comparison to the original Lord of the Rings movies. The Hobbit movies were... sometimes they were painful watching. But the Rings of Power... I don't know what to say. I have recently been giving more time to House of the Dragon. I'm genuinely beginning to like it. I didn't when I first watched it. I thought, this isn't Game of Thrones. There's no Tyrion Lannister. There's no Lord Stark. Well, he's dead. Sean Beatty gets killed in near enough everything he's in, doesn't he? There's no this character and that character. Oh, but there are dragons, yeah, but... Matt Smith does an amazing job as Daemon Targaryen. And the young princess, Rhaenyra, is it? Or Rhaenyra? I don't know. Bloody Targaryens. They give people such complicated names, don't they? Almost House Stark, as you might have noticed. There you go. That, in Old Norse, says winter is coming. Starks are always right in the end, you know. And I do sometimes feel that I'm unsure whether I am more or less than human. Or maybe just different. But we all are to a certain extent. Yeah, I've veered away from the sci-fi thing. For now. Because I don't think I actually have much truck with morals. I have a code. By the way, I'm a huge fan of Dexter, but I don't kill people. Yet. I'm joking with you. Honestly. Really, no. I spent some time in Chelmsford prison over 25 years ago, long before I met my partner here, on remand for a piece of silliness that happened in another town. And I certainly never want to go back there again. Never. And I was lucky I was on the medical wing, which meant I was in my own cell, I was being cared for. And this was obviously over 25 years ago. From what I've heard, the prison system has gotten a lot worse since. But I'd still survived because that time, I think it was 2 or 3 months, has left a very large impression on me. And I'm afraid I think I still have a certain amount of conditioning in that I genuinely approach, I'll call it civilian life, with a don't fuck with me attitude. I will genuinely, if I feel like I'm being screwed around with, will give off very aggressive vibes and be like, don't screw with me. Because I don't make threats. I don't say things most of the time. I would say 80% of the time I don't say things I don't mean. Unless I'm really drunk and really angry. Would you say that's a fair point? Yes, I'm getting the nod of approval from my queen over there. And that can make me a very difficult and unpredictable person to be around. I do understand that. Oh, by the way, this is the tankard that was passed down from my father. God's rest his soul. It is a map, slightly battered, a bit like me, of the positions of the Battle of Trafalgar. Famous English victory. Nelson. Hang on, let me get that right. Incidentally, you know why navies do that? It was considered disrespectful for a deckhand or a sailor to show a dirty hand to an officer. So that's why they always do it kind of like that. There you go. Historical facts as well. Yay. Oh, I've been going on for 29 minutes. I've still got more. This is going to be epic, kids. But I'm genuinely baffled. I mean, I've had this said to me by someone who I respect, who I kind of actually view as a bit of a mentor these days. Hi, Chris Turland at Ipswich Community Hub. Wonderful place. I can recommend it. I've had my troubles with it, but now all's clear and all's good. Because I must admit, I've had a lot of father figures and mentors in my life. To those who regularly watch my stuff, you probably know some of them. But first, there was my father, who may have had his issues, but was a genuinely honest and honourable man. Very quick to anger as well. Runs in the family. And there was his close friend Rodney, who grew up in the East End of London. And at the time he was a teenager, he was working for the Krays, the infamous British gangsters. He did time for manslaughter when he was about 18, 19. Got out of that, started being much more grey area with the work he did. Still had connections. He still had grey area connections when my father and mother met him and his wife in Yorkshire on holiday many, many years ago. And Rodney was short, cocky, crude, rude, just the kind of person my mother normally hates. But somehow his charm won her over, and my dad loved him. And I loved him. He was my Cockney Yoda. Is that a good one, darling? Did you meet him? No, you didn't, did you? That's how long ago it was. He passed away from asbestosis many years ago now. He taught me much. And even at one stage where I was having huge amounts of trouble, genuine confession, I don't need to make shit up. Basically, the whole reason for my transgression against the law, which, by the way, was a Crown Court case, involved a toxic relationship and someone I viewed as a friend betraying me. But then again, the relationship I was in was so screwed up. She was sleeping with someone else. I was sleeping with someone else. Two wrongs don't make a right, people. I know that now. At the time, I was too off my head on various drugs to even register. And he genuinely, after I got out of remand, because I was on remand, I never served any actual jail time. I was given an 18-month suspended sentence. I think in America you call it out on bail, don't you? But there's no money involved. I was under quite strict conditions for the first 6 months. I wasn't allowed on licensed premises. I wasn't allowed to leave my mother and father's property between 7 in the evening and 7 in the morning. I still remember when I was first there, when I knew these conditions, I used to take great pleasure in just setting my foot outside the door into the car park and then taking it back in. That was very childish, wasn't it? Yeah. But basically, Rod one night when I was angry at what had happened to me. I was angry at the people involved. I was just angry. He literally turned around and said, I know people. If you want this bloke sorted, I can do it for you. Would you want that to happen? And I initially, in my anger, said yes. And he turned around and he looked me straight in the eye and he said, are you sure you would want to do that? And I looked at him and gradually the realisation dawned that no, I didn't want that. I was as much to blame for the circumstances of that fucked up toxic relationship as anyone else. And he looked at me and he nodded, just like King Yoda. He was short, but he wasn't green. I will now relate one of the funniest incidents when I knew Rod that I ever heard. Bless him. Basically, in Needham Market, where I grew up in Suffolk, east of England, UK, for my American viewers and other aliens. There was this man in his 50s, originally Welsh, but lived in Needham Market. It's called Taffy. Any Stowmarket, and Needham Market people who are watching this, you may well remember him. And in the Ofton Lime Burners, a lovely pub up from Barking outside of Needham Market, where I used to sing folk songs on a Sunday night. Taffy was in there, big lanky man, famous for getting into fights, banned from various pubs at various points. Drank like the Welshman he was, bless him. I liked him. He was a roughhouse character. Well, basically, short-arsed little Rodney stood next to him in the gents at the urinals. And Taffy was swaying a bit because he was drunk. This was in the Lime Burners. You've heard this one, haven't you? Yeah. It's still lovely. And Taffy swaying away while he's urinating. Basically went, hello. I'm the hardest man in Needham. And little Rod looked up at him and said, well, you were. That was Rodney in a nutshell. He did not give a shit. And I think it was from him that I learned not to. And then there was Jason. Can you remember his surname, darling? Mm-hmm. Began with an H. I can't look it up because he's disappeared from social media. I don't even know if he's still alive. Jason was the leader of the Ormsguard, the first reenactment group I got involved with over a decade ago. And on one of my first events, I think it was the same event where I earned my Viking nickname, Halfdown Wine Bench, the name of my channel. Me and him had a very deep, I was quite drunk, heart to heart. He was sizing me up, working me out, because I was a relatively new recruit then. They knew about the troubles I'd had 15 years previously. And yet they accepted me. That cemented my trust in the Ormsguard. Good times. And we chatted by a campfire at Weststow Anglo-Saxon village, where we lived in Watland daub huts over the weekend with a fire in the middle, thatch over our heads. It's beautiful, man. And ladies. And those who identify as neither. And he, at one point, looked me straight in the eye and said, at one point, you're going to lead your own reenactment group, Howard. I know it. That's always stayed with me. And then there was Rick. To many people, he was known as Rurik Gunnar Magnusson, but his birth name was Richard Myrtle. Sorry. My father passed away 2 years ago. Jason disappeared. How long ago was it, darling? 4 years ago? 5?
A while ago.
Rick passed away from terminal cancer in January. And that man, I mean, I had to leave the Ormsguard due to ill health. When would you say I left, darling? 6 years ago? 5 years ago?
Probably more 6.
6 years ago, after I gave up full-time work, because I got frozen shoulder. I literally spent about a year, didn't I, where I was unable to lift my shoulder any higher than this without extreme pain. I'm not going to go into details about what the condition is. You can Google it. Come on, you've got a smartphone. If you're watching this, you've got a phone. You can Google it. It basically meant I couldn't lift my arm any higher than this, which is a bit difficult when you're doing Viking reenactment. Yeah. I spoke to him after he had announced he was going into a hospice just before Christmas. He kept this very quiet. This man was amazing. I think 3 or 4 years previous to his death, maybe longer, he'd had a pacemaker fitted, but he carried on fighting on the battlefield. He just bought better padded armour. I loved him. As an uncle and a brother. A shield brother. And I promised him that I would go down and visit him in the hospice. I never got round to it because I have very limited finances. Very limited. Like, my guaranteed monthly income is 0. So therefore I rely on my partner for a lot of support, and I'm very thankful for that. I didn't make it down, and this upset me. So I knew I had to go to his funeral, which was in Ruislip in Surrey, which is quite a considerable distance from Ipswich, Suffolk, UK. But my partner, bless her, she paid for me to go. I'll be eternally grateful for that. I'm not embarrassing you, am I? And it was really then that the full extent, this man had basically, even though I'd technically not been a member of the Ormsguard, the moment I posted any old shit on Facebook during the time he was still alive, he would be the first one to like it. Didn't matter what it was. He was there for me. But in actual personal communication, he was very shy. But on the battlefield, he was an expert. After he'd had his, it was just before, I can't remember the exact details. But basically, I have seen that man take down 3 warriors half his age in the space of 5 minutes on a reenactment battlefield. He was amazing in combat, and yet he was so clumsy in real life. Do you remember that time he was decorating the hall at West Stowe? Yes. They have a West Stowe Anglo-Saxon village. Brilliant place if you're in East Anglia. If you ever visit West Stowe Anglo-Saxon village. They have authentic huts that were built in about the 1980s of what people would have lived in around about between the 5th and 9th centuries. Watland daub, thatch, fire in the middle. Lovely places to stay in. Wonderful. Anyways. Can you tell me where I was going?
You were talking about Rick.
Rick, yes, Rick. In real life, he was clumsy as all hell and would injure himself with seemingly innocuous household instruments. But on the battlefield, there was no better. And yet he was such a gentle, creative, sensitive soul. And at his funeral and wake, I met so many people from so many different aspects of his life. He had at times been a Cossack dancer. He'd been doing Viking reenactments since the late 1970s, early 80s. He was very well known on the North London amateur dramatics scene because he lived in North London. Am I missing anything?
Tap dancing.
Tap dancing. The man could move like Michael Jackson. And it still wounds me that he's gone. Fucking hell, I've been talking for 48 minutes now. This has turned into a bit of an epic one, hasn't it? See you, Rick. I'll see you in Valhalla. I've missed out the death of a very good friend, haven't I? Haven't I, darling? Mm-hmm. Just before COVID hit the UK, there was a young man, well, he was when I first met him, called Richard Day. Back in the 90s, yeah, I'm old, I'm 52. There was a nightclub down by the railway station in Ipswich called Hollywood's back then. It went through various name changes over the years, but it was Hollywood's when I met him, I think. And it was a Monday night, it was a student night. Do you stud? Bill Hicks. Basically, I remember going up to the alternative bit on the top floor because downstairs at that time was commercial. And there was this bespectacled bespectacled. I may have been drinking. Youth with glasses. Yeah, that's what bespectacled means, Howard. Vast amounts, a shock of frizzy light brown hair, little beard. He was being harassed by a group of about half dozen chavs. May have been less than that, I'm not sure. I didn't know him. All I saw was a brother, an alternative, being harassed by ignorant arseholes. And I walked over. I thought, hey, you all right, man? And he looked at me and went, oh, hi, all right. And then this provoked a reaction from other people. Suddenly, the rest of the alternative crowd that were up on the alternative floor gathered round. And then these chavs were like, oh dear. And they backed off and left him alone. And Richie, bless him, he was like, oh, do you want a beer? Thanks, man. And he bought me a beer. I'd like to think we became friends ever since. We had our disagreements over the years, but I got to know the rest of his family. There's Michael Day, there's Shane Day, there's Jakey Day. There are days all over Ipswich. And, friendships come and go, but when you catch up with people, even if you haven't seen them in years, you still have the banter, Anyway, just before, in fact, it was about a month before COVID, wasn't it? A month before COVID hit, Richie had gone to he was his cousin, wasn't he? Or was he his younger brother? Jakey.
Oh, that's his brother, no.
Yeah. His younger brother had his first gig with his metal band. Hi, Jakey. Richard had gone to see it, had a really good time, and then he walked back home on his own. I'd meant to be there that night, and me and Richie would have walked partially the same route. Not 10 minutes from where I live, he got a kebab. Outside the kebab shop were, for my American viewers, the equivalent in the UK of Hispanic immigrants from Mexico, Romanian gypsies, basically. About, how many of them were there? 5?
4 or 5.
4 or 5 teenagers who basically, they were going to mug him. Is that outside or on your game?
Outside.
Son, is that Japanese?
No, it's just a child.
Ah. Do all children speak Japanese, do you think? Konnichiwa. He walked out with his kebab to be confronted by 4 or 5 Romanian gypsy lads. And he was like, go home, you don't want to do this. And, this is from what we know of events. They attacked him. He tried to defend himself because he's probably been drinking. Hell, I've been there. Roughly tangent. Probably a badly timed tangent, but there you go. It's my channel. I go off on tangents when I want to. Because this is a difficult subject for me to talk about still. Wine. Everything's better with wine in your belly, as the great Tyrion Lannister once said. And they started on him. One of them threw lucky or unlucky punch, depending on your perspective, that basically severed Richard Day's artery, wasn't it? And I know from actually talking personally to one of the staff at the kebab shop that as Richie lay dying, one of them was searching his body for money. Pathetic piece of inhuman scum. Allegedly. How do you deal with that? Many of his family didn't at the time deal with it very well. Me and Shane. Shane's his cousin, isn't he? I don't know, the Day family is... I love them to bits, but they're so convoluted would be the word, wouldn't it? We want to go out and find any Romanian gypsy lad, because they're quite infamous in Ipswich for muggings, robberies, pickpocketing. We want to go out and find one and do unto others as, you know what I'm saying. We were discouraged from this kind of behaviour, thankfully. Bless you, Shane. I hope you're still out there. You're a good lad. I haven't seen you in a while. I think, in summary, what I'm trying to say, trying to wrap this up, is no matter what trauma, personal hell, or bereavement you're going through, don't ever stop fighting. Don't give up. You owe it to yourself and your ancestors. Be they whatever. Doesn't matter whether they're peasants, kings. Doesn't matter. You owe it to your forefathers and foremothers, is that even a word, to keep fighting. Don't ever give up. Because if you do give up, you're just letting evil win. You're just letting selfishness, emptiness, and evil win. Anyway, in my view, committing suicide is dishonourable. Don't ever think that you're worth nothing. Don't put yourself down. There are plenty of other people that will do that for you. Why do you do that? Think to yourself, why do you do that? Why would you do that? Value yourself. Because you cannot value other people until you value yourself. It's that fucking simple, people. Yeah, I've got loads of flaws. I don't exactly hide them. Not that I ever could I, dear? I'm impatient. I'm aggressive. I'm outspoken. I'm rather anti-establishment. Is that a fair point? Are you secretly smiling there? She's playing computer games. She's as much of a geek as I am. I must actually do some more gaming videos on this channel at some point. Oh, tangent again. I've been going on for 1 hour and 2 minutes. This is going to take a long time to upload, isn't it? Your hair looks lovely, by the way. She's dyed her hair again. How can I wrap this up? Any suggestions? She lets me go my own way, go your own way. I love Fleetwood Mac, by the way. Cheers. I would say something I said on Facebook. At the end of the day, human history has been a series of conflicts, atrocities, misunderstandings, greed, selfishness and arrogance. This is going to be very difficult to change. I'm 52. I'm set in my ways. I do not have the hope that young people do. As far as I'm concerned, life is conflict. Life is competition. This is what I've been brought up to. I understand there could be something better, but it's so ingrained in me by my family background, by what I've witnessed, by what I've experienced, that it's kind of too late for me to change my attitude in a lot of ways. I was born in the wrong time. That's my problem, not yours. So let's end it on a kind of Bill and Ted kind of note. It's popular. The only thing I've missed in this video is the cat. Hi, Lex. Nah. Our 19-year-old house cat probably isn't going to respond. She did earlier. Do you see that video, Don? She intruded on my early morning video. Bless her. That's because she wanted feeding. But basically, I hope that the generations that come after me manage to sort this shit out before we annihilate our world. You look at the Ukraine, you look at Israel versus Hamas, you look at what's going on in certain South American countries, you look at Mexico, you look at Africa. War, like it or not, is everywhere. And even though it makes great stories, I hate it. We should be better. Leave the past behind. We were born to be better. Peyton Parrish. Brilliant musician, brilliant vocalist. I emulate him quite a lot when I sing. Oh, the echoes of eternity. Oh, Valhalla calling me. Yeah. What can I say? Trying to wrap this up. Never let anyone put you down. Be who you want to be, but have the courage of your convictions. Don't piss about. Don't piss people about. When you say to someone, yeah, I can do that, don't pussyfoot out of it. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Do it now. Good old Arnie. Bit of a lecherous, touchy-feely pervert, but yeah, well, we all have our flaws. I have many. As you may have noticed, there's one of them. Addictive personality. Well, I still, as in my last video, am very grateful for the people that have come into my life and given me the time of day. I've known some wonderful people in my years. And I still feel like, as in my last video, I feel like reiterating some dedications. I'll go for the most recent first. Ed and Gayen. I haven't been pronouncing that right, Ed. Chip. You mean well. You are dedicated to what you do. Chris Turland. Another wonderful founder of Chip Ipswich Community Hub. You're a very wise rogue. Michael Anderson. You're a star, man. Giovanni, the artist. Even Gloria. Something landed on me, insectoid. And all the people that I met at Ipswich Community Hub. Richard, Rod, Jason, and even, hi Andreas, and Harry Joseph. The Ormsguards, what's his name, darling? The Ormsguards Athelstan, who is now back from across the pond and in Wales, I believe. And Paul, you know what I mean, don't you? Ormsguard. And Squirrel Lady, his wife. What was her name, darling? You know what I mean. I have met many good people in my life, and I am privileged to have done so. And those who have stood up for me, I will stand up for you. It's that simple. On the other hand, you betray me and I will give you back that betrayal tenfold. And this is what people don't understand. I portray myself as a nice guy. But if you cross me, I don't hold back. I am physically and mentally incapable of holding back. It's a flaw in some ways, not in others. I was supposed to be wrapping this up, wasn't I? That was the idea, wasn't it? Okay. We are now at an hour and 15 minutes. If any of you have got this far, God bless you and keep you and protect you. Peace and love and all that shenanigans. This is the lone warrior in his little Viking rowboat signing off. Enjoy your evening.